At the apex of VCT 2025 stood 4 rookies, each in their debut year at the top of Valorant. One of those players, Kayak, found himself just 1 year ago in the same position as our Ascension hopefuls do today, that their dreams to play at the elite level would finally be realised. This is the final year slated for Ascension, a tournament equal parts captivating and cruel. The conclusion to the VCT calendar as we decide which teams will join their international leagues for the next season. In this episode of Team Report, I will be running through all 8 EMEA Ascension hopefuls who have battled through 6 stages of play just for the chance to represent their region in Berlin, starting with Group A. ULF Esports come into Ascension as the top seed of the event after winning the final Challengers EMEA tournament of the year. It's been a long journey from Premier until now, yet they find themselves at the peak of the second tier and the closest they've ever been to doing the unthinkable. Similarly to the origin story of PCIFIC last year, ULF are a Turkish team which found themselves promoted in the first stage of Challengers in 2025. On this run, they eclipsed teams with a strong legacy in their region, such as Galacticos and Digital Athletics, from which SOP and Ordaz jumped ships as the 2023 Ascension representatives sunk into Tier 3. From making their debut at a regional level, the quality was immediately recognised, and as other notable names fell around them, they secured the runners-up slot for the second Challengers EMEA event of the year, their first taste of interregional competition. That ended in a harsh group exit to Koi Phoenix, who made an eventual 3rd place finish, but the lessons were learned. Heading back to Turkey, they again finished in the top 2, this time dashing the hopes of Eternal Fire, the established old guard with several players who played in VCT only a year ago. The most recent run in Stage 3 showed the very peak of what this team can achieve. In the absence of top squads such as Enterprise and BBL Pacific, both consumed by a group of death, it begs the question of if they can step out of the shadow of their regional overlords when the time counts most. ULF have a very aggressive playstyle, but with the addition of VCT veteran coach Vlad, they have shown the ability to play with more discipline and convert advantages they would previously have tossed away. His anti-stratting and strength in preparation for matchups has been clear at times, and with their win over Mandatory in the lower final, it was the perfect example of knowing your opponent's tendencies and countering them effectively. The more tape this team has, the stronger they become. Everyone on this roster can shoot, so there is no one to watch per se, but definitely keep your eyes out for Echo on defensive halves. He loves to get in the enemy's faces, and at his best can be very entertaining. Even this week they won the Turkish Red Bull Homeground qualifier, beating FUT twice in both best of 1 and best of 5 scenarios. And despite it being against a weaker version of the roster during the off-season, ULF should still be respected as one of the best teams from Turkey in 2025, VCT and Challengers teams alike. ULF have the mechanical ability to beat any of the teams in this tournament, and have shown enough depth to compete in a best-of-5 environment now. Is this all too much too soon for the youngest team in the event, or could they seriously be in with a chance? Enterprise have been active in Valorant since 2021, making them the longest-serving organisation in Ascension EMEA, despite only appearing at the event for the first time in their history this year. They've been one of the most consistent teams and are now finally being rewarded for their efforts, placing top 3 domestically in all stages and going back-to-back as winners in the final 2. Also attending every single EMEA event and winning 1 in the second stage, a feat only shared by fellow frontrunners BBL Pacific. The first ever Champions MVP before bracelets or team bundles, Zeke, was the best player in the world on the best team, Ascent. For the first time since then, he has partnered back up with Killers on their return to the city where they were crowned. This roster was always going to take time to shape into what we know its capabilities could be. We saw the peak of that in the second stage grand finals by downing a full-strength BBL Pacific, featuring comeback to place first, which felt almost unachievable considering the form of the Turkish Titans. The roster was originally built by Zeke with only a couple of weeks time frame, leaving him as the in-game leader before Starkey was brought in with Coach Legia last second. This showed in their first stage performances, as they couldn't solve how to win on Lotus for 3 months. Now it's one of their best maps going into Ascension. Week by week you could see the improvements be made, and that process has not stopped. Most people's eyes would naturally go towards one of the former VCT players as someone to watch. Doma showed exactly how good of a supportive player he is at Paris, subbing in for Fnatic. However, I think Yash is instrumental to how this team operates. He plays eerily similar to Alexic in the sense that he much prefers to be op in hand, but still has the flexibility to move to a rifle and hard entry if required. It's from these opening engagements that Enterprise have a strong macro foundation from Starkey's calling and Alexar's coaching that sets them up to win rounds. Their ability on defense to quickly flood site holds is some of the best at this level, if not at a VCT quality, and it's another area where Doma and Zeke shine. It's been a couple of years since we saw either of them at the elite level, but they have almost totally reinvented themselves during this time. Both have moved from being some of the biggest names in EMEA for duelists at the start of their career to being dependable anchors, and even Doma has grown massively in his maturity and continues to be the everything man who can play whatever the team requires. Their group stage exit in the most recent Challengers EMEA event was a surprise and could raise alarm bells for some, especially considering the fact that they came into the event to win it despite being already qualified for the main event. But this wake-up call has come at just the right time. They've had opportunities now to refocus and prepare to make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes. When it comes to Ascension, they'll only get one best of 5 on the day to make sure everything goes right. The question will be, can they turn up when it matters, as we know they have before? Most of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you're enjoying the video and want to see more content like this, please consider helping me out and turning on notifications as well. Thanks, and let's get back to the teams. The DNSTY team which enters Ascension is far from the one which started Challengers EMEA back in March. Waddle and Tag are all that's left of that time, and the Italian is the final piece of a forgotten age of their past regional successes. With the collapse of the Portuguese and Italian leagues merging into Spain coming into 2025, the organisation formerly known as Desire, based in Milan, rebranded to DNSTY, and their campaign has equally reflected the change they've been through on the outside as much as the inside. DNSTY was struck with the retirement of Caden, a pillar of the Italian scene, and other notable exits in Badigi and Simos to VCT. This signalled a departure from the structure we once knew, the same structure that made it to the group stages of the last 2 Ascension tournaments. In comes Tycee and Creamy, 2 players who went toe-to-toe with last year's winners Apex as part of their free agent team Sweet and Sour. The ranked duo, who have been teammates on and off for the last 2 years, managed to achieve 1 win over the Goliaths last year, exempt from a grand final setting, but have come on massively as players since. Tycee has always been incredibly vocal within whichever teams he's been a part of, blurring the lines between in-game leader and second caller. It felt like we were going to get a repeat of last year from their SNS team until they joined Permitter Unicorns together. The failures of that roster sparked a move which altered the course of their year. Tycee had been calling from the duelist role for most of his career, but the full switch to Smokes joining the DNSTY team may have been the best decision he's made so far. Famsi was the next change, a familiar face for those who have watched the last of these videos, as he was formerly of HGE from the same region. Their exit in the regular season inspired his search for a new roster, and having a few players he already knew on DNSTY, it felt like the perfect choice. We've seen just how good some of the talents from Giant X were this year at Champs, and Famsi was one of those originally considered for the team. Formerly of UCAM and given a stint of 2 matches in the VCT at the end of 2024, this is his chance to take back that opportunity and come to Berlin with a sense of vengeance. So with 2 stages already behind them, the new-look DNSTY roster blitzed through domestic play to their 2nd ever Grand Finals as a team. For the individual players, some of them had never lifted a trophy in Challengers before, but this drought was put to rest in Murcia after an electric comeback over 5 maps. DNSTY's strength lies in their ability to retake quickly and effectively as a team. Beginning Challengers EMEA, they were the clear frontrunners in this stat and maintained it well throughout their run, ending in back-to-back Grand Finals appearances. Unfortunately, they couldn't seal the deal against ULF after holding on to a 12-7 lead on the 4th map, coming out of their preferred defender's side. It felt like they were trying to rush things onto the next at times, repeating a few critical mistakes and showing their inexperience in these situations. For some, it will leave a sour taste in the mouth, as it was the last time that we saw them in an official environment. But these players' hunger will only be driven further, knowing that there is still work to be done. DNSTY come into this tournament off the back of a 2nd place, but still by no means favourites in this group. However, I'm confident that they will give any team in A run for their money. Joblife enter Ascension for the second year running, although this time as the replacement team for Rad, who failed to meet certain requirements, excluding their participation as one of the original 8 teams. This run is by no means miraculous, but most definitely gracious given the circumstances of qualification and Joblife's performance across the year. Starso is the only remaining player from the roster which made the first stage of Challengers EMEA. The ex-champions winner now finding himself as the in-game leader where he previously joined the project as a secondary caller. Yet again, the same situation as Koi last year. His calling hasn't been the most convincing until this point, but I feel for him taking on extra responsibilities in such a volatile team, when the expectation was that they would gradually build throughout the year towards that goal of Ascension. He is joined by Shin as the only other player on a fixed contract returning to the lineup. Sivov has also been a part of the team in a loan deal since Stage 3, with the departure of Unfake to Vitality taking his place in the VCT lineup. So how do we get to this point? Loans. They say to never fall in love with a lone player, but that's exactly what the Joblife fans did. The core of a VCT grade roster had been borrowed from teams such as BBL, GX, and Vitality to bring in Chua, Purpo, and of course the aforementioned Sivov. But with their route to Ascension appearing to be closed off after losing in the group stages of the third EMEA event of the year, deals were concluded and players returned to their home clubs. Efforts had been made for Chua to rejoin Joblife for this event, but his continued visa issues blocked the move, and so began the list of new faces. His replacement on the Sentinel role is Stonesy, a former Ramboot player from the Spanish Regional League who helped push them into a Stage 3 semi-final, the highest placement in the club's long history in Challengers. Stonesy has been on my radar for a while as a player with immense potential, one of a few Ukrainian talents who have recently emerged including the Boars roster. This is without a doubt the biggest opportunity in his career so far, and a chance for him to show everyone what he's about, despite how tough the circumstances may be. Kada returns to Berlin after an unsuccessful tenure with Gentlemates. He originally played in the French League until mid-2024, when he was signed by the first Ascension winners, but not part of the lineup which was promoted. Most recently on Mates, he was their smokes player in Stage 1, but has the depth to play a whole variety of roles and agents, making him indispensable to a team which will likely spend those first weeks figuring out what it is that they want to run. Joblife has been anything but stable this year. In the first and final stages, they showed domination at home, cruising through both upper brackets in France, but failing to convert any momentum at both outings on the interregional stage as its number 1 seed. It's through these hot streaks that they were able to accrue the necessary points to be here on a technicality. They have such a high ceiling with the players on this team, it leaves you wanting more. There is no reason why, especially in a LAN setting, that they can't turn it on when it matters, but that still remains to be seen. Group A has some of the best mechanical ability and individuals in the whole tournament, which makes it very hard to predict who turns up in this environment. My choice though sits with the 2 favourites. Enterprise have the best fundamentals in the event, and ULF have added a new level of theory to their game which wasn't once present in stages gone by. DNSTY have so much potential, as do Joblife, but I think it's probably asking too much to see them move on to the Ascension stage. Next up, let's talk about Group B. BBL Pacific's time in Challengers will reach its long-awaited conclusion in the following weeks, but the legacy they leave behind remains to be the most dominant streak any Turkish team has had in the history of Tier 2. Before their formation, nobody had ever gone back-to-back in their region, something they've made to look routine with 4 consecutive titles. And with the expectation that they leave the scene after this event, the throne is finally left empty, but only as a result of their own abdication. Since joining EMEA in the Twitch chat of a Brazilian streamer, Vitality's Les described Larok and Loiter as the future Donk and Simple of Valorant, a description that could not be more fitting. Very few have been able to match the level of last year's Ascension Grand Finalists up to this point, but there have been vibrations in the Pacific camp that send shockwaves through the rest of Challengers. Turkey's triage of generational talent was brought down to 2 midway through the season as Comeback departed for VCT, turning 18 before Stage 2 and immediately getting called up by Gentlemates. So far, Lovers Rock, who returned to his home region after starring in East last year, has struggled to replicate similar impact, a thankless task for any new player. This has also had knock-on effects in the roles, as PCIFIC have been forced to rediscover their identity as a team, no longer relying on their duelists' hyper-aggressive entrying. There are a couple of different ways that the team can choose to line up, with Larok often featuring as the pivot point. His flexibility on agents allows for him to play a secondary duelist or even smokes, which they trialled more recently on Corrode, but his best pick will always be Breach. I want to see PCIFIC go back to what has worked for them in the past this event. We saw this exact same dilemma in the first stage and the Teho meta, and we're seeing it again here. The new map has been okay for them, but the biggest win of the changes is the return of Abyss, where they lost it only once in last year's Ascension in the Grand Final. One benefit that comes from being so revered in your own region is that word catches on, and during the downtime from their own schedule, the Champions teams arrived in Europe to compete in Paris and share server time with the local competition. BBL PCIFIC have enjoyed practice time against Fnatic, PaperX, and DRX, 3 of the top 4 from the event, which are invaluable experiences to take with them to Berlin for a second time. That's another factor which needs to be referenced when we talk of the reasons why this team is so good. The only LAN match PCIFIC have lost in the VCT circuit as a group was the Ascension Grand Final, all while thriving on stages in Istanbul throughout the year and continuing to play at their best as a group under the lights. The practice rooms should be a familiar feeling to a team which lives and breathes Valorant together in their shared apartment provided by BBL, never leaving the bootcamp setting. Even though this family of players has faced change throughout the year, they should still be feared as a favourite for promotion. Twisted Minds are the first team to represent MENA other than the Falcons TU core, which have for the last 3 years of interregional events. Last year was the first time they were represented at a playoff stage. A top 4 finish this time, however, would put them in an Ascension match. Due to MENA's exclusion from the first 2 stages of interregional play, they were handed an inflated point sum from their own domestic matches. With this, Twisted Minds had guaranteed themselves Ascension before stepping into the server for the first time against external opposition. This frustrated a lot of the community, but those hotheads quickly cooled, as they showed a high quality of Valorant, beating established opponents such as Mouse, who attended the last Ascension, and dropping just a single map in their group stage run. Twisted Minds look like favourites going into the playoff stage of Challengers EMEA 3, holding onto a 6-series win streak spanning all the way back to their domestic title win. Several big names were missing, but they still felt short at the first hurdles. An 0-2 record with plenty of lessons to be learnt before Ascension. What's different this year? For a start, MENA were given adequate prep time post-LAN, which was an issue during play-ins last year and Ascension 2023, with the old schedule dating it pre-champs. After TU's run and the growth of esports in the Middle East, more talents have decided to make the region their home, increasing the overall level of competition and improving local talent with them. Sand came into that same Ultimates team midway through last year and has put himself right at the forefront of the conversation of MENA talent that we can expect to see join VCT in the near future. Former teammates with Avez, a fellow Egyptian who was the last player from the region to join the league, Sand is looking to replicate his efforts through Ascension this time. On his last roster, he was locked into playing only Sentinel, but we have since seen him shine on Raze and a more aggressive chamber now as well. Jesse arrived in Twisted Minds during the season, which given his track record is ultimately unsurprising. Plus Jesse minus Jesse has become a bit of a meme in Challengers because he's never quite been able to find the roster which works for him. 6 different teams since 2021 making his debut. Clearly he is a player with a lot of talent to be so high on the list of many organisations who have wanted to secure his signature, but for whatever reason it hasn't been the right fit for both parties. We last saw him at Ascension representing VCT Esports, replacing KPZ just before Ascension, but this time he's had the MENA finals land to climatise and become an important cog in the Minds machine. Another player to watch is Exit, who was also active during Champions in the Elite Valorant circuit queues, the EU version of Pro City, cutting his teeth next to some of the world's best players with Sand and showing a competitive level. He has been part of Twisted Minds since 2023 and is the duelist player for the team, showcasing the 4 meta agents with the exception of Waylay for now, but we'll have to see if this changes post-Champions. Sikray has been very effective as a mid-round caller, and Twisted Minds will need him if they want to play at their best. His inclusion in the team was one of the final missing pieces in company with Jesse that have turned this project for good. In the 5 months before Andreas came in, the roster was entirely different, but this move to importing talent with a blend of the best of MENA has to offer has cemented their spot at the top of the region. Is an Ascension stage a stretch too far? Only time will tell. Mandatory came into the third Challengers EMEA event right on the threshold of the Ascension qualification spots, faced with almost impossible odds. An unseeded group with the 2 clear-cut favourites staring them down. A true group of death, but not a death meant for them. This year hasn't been easy on the longest serving club in France. The running joke between their fans continues to be that with 2 Ascension spots this year, they would simply find a way to finish second and still get promoted. It's been 3 years since the team last raised a trophy, and the only remnant of those glory days is Hib. He has seen rosters come and go, rebuilding this team on more than one occasion since, but 2025 is by far their best shot yet. As their previous in-game leader, he stepped back at the start of the year to make way for Enzo, who has succeeded in bringing them together. They suffered an early loss in the stage to Benelux United, which was the reality check that they needed, helping them to reevaluate their methods working as a new group on boot camp. An otherwise slow start to their final stage sparked to life in a reverse sweep comeback against Valiant, with a quadruple overtime on the penultimate map, going down as one of the most iconic matches in French Challengers, especially now if Mandatory ascend at the end of the gauntlet. Losing Sivov to Vitality with his eventual return to rivals Joblife stings, but the silver lining of the swap is that it allowed for them to bring in Takas. He was on the other side of the first Ascension Grand Final to Enzo, earning the spot with Gentlemates, but has radically changed as a player since being benched there in 2024. I try to separate players by role in these videos, usually settling on their most played over the last few months, and there's no better contradiction of this with how versatile Takas has become. He's no longer just a duelist player, and in modern Valorant you can't afford to stagnate. He's shown the ability to perform on Deadlock, Phoenix, and Viper to name a few, fulfilling very niche roles in Mandatory's team compositions, which they continue to keep fresh and interesting to say the least. Coming into their EMEA games in Stage 3, they had a solid 2 weeks of preparation, and this extra time was fundamental to them recuperating the necessary points to survive in the qualification spots. It's a similar situation here, as the team has been enjoying another bootcamp, this time using Vitality's facilities in Paris adjacent to Champions. If Mandatory are to succeed, we need to see keloqz play at the level which originally earned him a spot in VCT years ago. He was the main contributor to their shock win which started it all against PCIFIC, netting 53 kills over just 2 maps, and this is the same kind of output that they'll need to win here. The lack of consistency from stage to stage does concern me with Mandatory, but it's all one game at a time. FOKUS are the only team in this event to qualify for Ascension that did not feature in the third stage of Challengers EMEA, making a surprise change not long after by removing Hoodie from the active lineup. Samed is his replacement, an Austrian player with Turkish roots who made his Challengers debut last year. He's been a journeyman since, taking his trade between 3 different regions and 4 unique rosters during this time, most recently with Wild in Northeast, exiting Stage 3 in the Lower Swiss. He joined FOKUS as a substitute back in July, but will start his first match as part of the main roster this week. His agent pool from officials consists of 7 of the playable 8 duelists with the absence of Waylay, suggesting to me that FOKUS are opting for a double duelist meta read heading into Ascension. A role previously held by Zus, who is the most prolific operator player in EMEA Tier 2. I would expect him to retain this role on their defensive halves, as he has been calling a lot of setups alongside Lewis. On the attack, his Yoru can play a more supportive role to assist Samed with the harder entries. This core of the FOKUS lineup has been active in Challengers for more than 2 years now, with Lewis making the transition back to in-game leader under the tutelage of Cider from their 2024 attempt. Extra coaching staff have also come in, with Kundi Kundi defecting from rivals Maus, now eliminated from the running, to pair up with Itupata, who joined mid-season, and it remains to be seen how much of an effect the late change will have, but it's a gambit which FOKUS are relying on paying off. Alorante continues to be one of the sharpest aimers in the region and can completely take over games by himself, but this changes like the weather. His headshot percentage has always been sky high, but aiming styles like this can sometimes suffer depending on the opponent. If he performs at his best, then FOKUS are a serious contender. Mystic is one of the names alongside Hoodie who came in from VCT last year. Securing his signature from Team Liquid was the first promising statement that this team would be challenging for an Ascension spot. An experience which he knows well, having finished as runner-up to Gentlemates in 2023 with Apex alongside Ito, a near flawless streak from domestic play from the end of the year, forever tainted by that Grand Finals loss. This team is much different, but allows him to carry over the same identity, aggressive omen play and huge clutch ability late round, all of the qualities you could want from a smoker. It's this additional experience that gives me hope for FOKUS coming into this event. For some of them, LAN is where they play at their very best. Lewis has beaten tougher opponents with even less experience before, and now that the team has gone through hell and back to make the run they finally deserve. One thing that cannot be disputed is their lack of results in playoff stages this year. After making back-to-back EMEA events in the first two stages, they exited both winless. This statistic simply has to change for FOKUS, as there are no second chances in Ascension. Group B is equally difficult to predict, with all four teams being on a very similar level in terms of overall performances and macro understanding. But BBL Pacific have such a high skill ceiling, it would be naive not to see them moving forward, alongside mandatory for me. For some reason, I believe the Red Hammers can forge a miracle run this event. It's so close between them, FOKUS, and Twisted Minds for who takes that second spot though. I worry that the other two may be subject to too much change for that to become a reality. That's all for this episode of Team Report on VCT Ascension EMEA. The stage is set and our 8 teams are ready to take to the Berlin practice rooms this Saturday. If you found this video useful, consider leaving a like and letting me know in the comments who you think will join VCT EMEA for 2026. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the show. But until then, goodbye.